my name is Adele. I'm the founder of Naked.Recovery. In today's video, I want to talk about attachment trauma. So what is attachment trauma? If we think of it like in our lives, we are kind of reacting badly, we're constantly feeling clingy or needy, or we're struggling in our relationships by pushing people away or clinging too hard onto our relationships. If you're finding yourself having these kinds of patterns as an adult, there's a high possibility that you experienced attachment trauma when you were a child. So trauma at an attachment level is not necessarily about something horrible happening to the person, like they've been sexually abused or tortured, or some terrible death occurred at a very young age. Sometimes attachment trauma is just as simple as having really, really strong emotions at particular ages when you're a kid, experiencing strong feelings of sadness or strong feelings of upset or despair, and then being left alone with all of those feelings. When you aren't comforted and left alone and taught how to self-regulate and soothe yourself, it can lead to an attachment trauma. So if we're trying to understand the different facets of attachment trauma, we have 4 different quadrants that you could be in. Okay, so the one axis is basically closeness, so our ability to actually become close to people. And the other axis is anxiety. Now, when we have low anxiety and the ability to be close to people, we have secure attachment. So that basically means we're pretty chilled in life. We can form really good relationships with people. We don't have a lot of drama. We don't feel particularly clingy or needy, but we're also not particularly distant or weird with people. We can handle closeness and we can self-regulate, and we're pretty cruisy. This is the unicorn. This is where everybody wants to be. And this really shows that you had not much trauma within your childhood. You can self-regulate and, you had a pretty good upbringing. In this compartment, you're pretty good at your emotions. You can sit with negative emotions. You can kind of not move to escape from them, not need addictions to kind of deal with them. You're a balanced person. Now, for most of us, we're all wanting to get there. I mean, there's very few people on the planet that have complete secure attachment. Most people are actually in one of the other 3 quadrants. Now, when you have the ability to that's kind of the low anxiety ability to be close to people. When we have that ability and the need to be close to people, but we have high anxiety, then we have an anxious attachment type. Anxious attachment type people were actually children who were left alone in their bad emotions. They fear abandonment. They fear being left alone. They are clingy and needy within their relationships. They are holding on very, very tight. They don't know how to self-soothe or self-regulate their emotions. They are up and down a lot and don't like partnerships where the person is distant or too unavailable. In this particular compartment, you have a very sensitive immune system. You are struggling to communicate. You are holding on very tight. You're very sensitive to what people say. In this compartment, you might be acting out when you're triggered. You might be making somebody else responsible for your security and for self-regulating you. This is a very codependent space to be in, and it's a sign of attachment trauma when you're in that kind of space in relationships. The other compartment is when you have high anxiety, but you really don't like being too close to people. So if you're in a relationship where somebody gets close, you have a space where you're like, all right, I need a break. I need some space here. Often these people, they do have high anxiety because they're basically thinking, well, you're going to leave me anyway, so I'm going to keep myself distant, or I'm going to leave you first so that you don't end up hurting me. In this particular compartment, they're sort of a bit more dependent, but not as clingy as the anxious attachment people. They are dependent, but they fear rejection. So they reject you before you reject them. So they're playing games. They're up and down. They're all over the place. One minute they're close. The next minute they're pushing you away. They're constantly testing the relationship. They might be trying to find out if you're cheating. They're constantly braced for trauma, waiting for the next drama to happen. And through this braced for trauma, they're almost trying to find trauma everywhere. This is a very tumultuous, dramatic relationship to be in. And if you're in a partnership with someone like this, it's a real roller coaster. The final compartment, which is the compartment that actually ends up doing a lot of the damage inside attachment trauma, is the compartment of avoidant dismissive. So this is when you don't have very high anxiety, but you also don't like being very close to people. These are the people that don't really think relationships are that important. They're a little bit disconnected from emotions. They're disconnected from relationships. They don't really care if they're oblivious to hurting people. They don't really think relationships are that important. They are self-reliant. They're very independent. They need a lot of space. And they don't really seem to care. They don't have that empathy and real kind of sensitivity to where other people are at. When they're in relationship with someone who is anxious or fearful, they roll their eyes. They're like, I'm not dealing with you in this space, and they disappear. If you're parented by someone like this, 9 times out of 10, you will end up being anxious or fearful, yourself. So you can see how rare it is in life for us to actually be parented by someone that has secure attachment, who carries across secure attachment to us as children. So a lot of our job as adults is to heal our own attachment trauma by going through therapy, going through a program, like looking at ourselves, be more aware of where we are in our type, how to have more healthy, secure relationships with people. So if you find yourself, you're wondering, am I a bit cold? Am I a bit pushing people away and playing games? Am I too clingy and attached? Or I'm in a relationship with someone like that, it's a good idea to do a program around attachment trauma. Ultimately, for all of us in life, when we do that work where we really heal and recover from things like this, we give ourselves the best chance to not carry forward these sorts of traumas to our children. So if you yourself have an attachment trauma as a parent, the chance of you carrying across that kind of attachment trauma to your child is high, because they model you, they are mirroring like who you are as a person. So it's a good thing to think about these elements when you are parenting, or you're thinking about having children, or you're in a relationship where things are starting to go a bit pear-shaped. Healing attachment trauma is often a function of learning self-regulation skills, working on codependency, working on your own childhood trauma and really recovering from that, and also working on how to support a partner without saving or rescuing them. Okay, so often when you have attachment trauma, you can get into a cycle called the Kaufman's drama triangle, where you're rescuing or the victim, or you're stuck in a perpetration kind of cycle with somebody. All these patterns that happen within relationships are really negative and destructive. So healing these elements are key for you to have a secure attachment in your own life and successful relationships. So if you want to find out more, book a call with any of us within our team. We'd be delighted to talk more about how you can recover from attachment trauma. Take care. Bye.